My dear brothers and sisters, today being the beginning of the Hajj month, I thought I'd speak about beloved and friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Prophet Ibraheem السلام, and try to draw lessons from his teachings, his life, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had actually mentioned about him and how he has advised us to really follow the traditions that were set by him during this particular time period, during his life, by the way, and whatever he had done. As you recall, he was tested many times by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there are so many stories that we can obviously narrate related to him that are mentioned in Al-Quran. They have become authenticated stories, authenticated narrations, authenticated statements by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about his beloved Prophet Ibraheem Khalilullah. So I have a difficulty trying to see which one to mention, how best to relate it to Hajj season. But let me just state, number one, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to sacrifice his son in his way, and that was the son that he had actually gotten in a very late life, and he was a very beloved son of his, of course. Every child is. And yet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to give in his path something that he loves most. And in the dreams he kept seeing it, and finally he made a decision that that has to be my son. So when he actually tried to sacrifice him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaced him by a lamb, and his sacrifice was accepted. Here is the lesson that I want to learn from that. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then asked all the pilgrims and hajis that when they're there performing Hajj, one of the things they must do is basically sacrifice an animal there, of course, but before that also throw stones at the devil. This was the devil that was trying to tell him when he was taking his son for sacrifice, appearing before him and giving him all the reasons that this is a dream and don't do this, who can do this to their own son, and this and that. And immediately Prophet Ibrahim would realize that this is the devil trying to interfere in my ibadah, or my submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, why is it that so many centuries after that particular incident, we are still following that tradition and throwing stones at a place where we don't even see the devil? We are following what a certain beloved, certain close friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did. The lesson to learn from that is, it's appropriate to follow people that are divinely or godly amongst us. Do not feel or do not think that such people do not exist today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the same sovereignty over his entire universe today than what he did centuries ago, and he always will. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has advised us to follow the path of those that he has actually given a higher status to, people that he has given inam to. So we have to actually not feel bad when we do something that has been taught to us by a teacher that we revere, or by a leader, Islamic scholar, that has given us something to recite. We should follow that, and in so doing, we will be in sync with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. Now, there are so many other examples from that time, but the best that one has to really, and even today, the scientists and others with knowledge, with brain, with intelligence, cannot really answer this question, and that is the starting of Zamzam. When the baby rubs the heels on the ground and the water comes out because the baby was thirsty, so was the mother, from that little rubbing on the ground, the fountain of water that started to come out centuries ago, it's coming out with such power today that people all across the globe carry that water, and even in Saudi Arabia, the government itself also provides water from there to different places, and yet there is no end to that water. Now, how much rainfall do we have in Saudi Arabia every year? What is the closest ocean to that place? Where is the water source? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But then imagine that happening today, and yet there are human beings on this planet who still do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His power. How can that happen? Why cannot they see this? Why cannot they actually investigate? Now, I can give you an example of someone that I know who's very scholarly, a person that is in a country not too far from here, who is very intelligent, very knowledgeable, has written many stories, and many things that he has written have become pictures and films, and yet he clearly says that I don't believe in Allah. I don't think Allah exists. And he can argue this thing to people, and there are people that follow him. I mention that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed this world that way. There will always be people that will challenge you. Somehow or the other, their hearts have hardened, become stones. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses them as agents of the devil, agents of Shaitan. And they will come to you, they will challenge you, and they will test you, but you will not really realize at the time what their mission is. But think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed this world where we are being constantly submitted to certain tests. More He gives you, more He tests you. More you want to come closer to Him, more He will test you. Harder and harder tests until a time comes when you pass the test, and now you become more or less so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He uses you to serve His creation. And that is the design of this world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the man, human being, in the best of form, best of shape, so that he can deliver Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's bounty and mercy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's al-inamat to His creation. This is what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to actually realize that by serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by coming close to Him, we will be then used by Him, hopefully, so that we can do our job as the best creation on this earth. Do not at any point feel that human beings are less capable. Human beings do have the ability. There are verses and there are ahadith that will more or less give you this authentication that when a person of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who loves Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he wants to come closer to Him, develops his spiritual being to the point that he has now purified himself well, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws him closer to Him at a point when he actually becomes hands and feet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He walks as if he's walking with the feet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not that Allah has those feet, but as just a parable, just to make us understand that a time comes you become Khizr-like. So Khizr al-Islam is there for God knows how many years, and yet he's serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. Wherever somebody is in trouble, shows up and does whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks him to do. And there are others, I'm sure, that do similar activities that we may not actually see. But then again, all of this becomes apparent to you once you make that intention. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the comprehension and the understanding that we have a mission